It's Wednesday, the 18th of September. First, we go to Accra. Ghana has achieved that rare thing in West Africa since 1992, multi-party elections and the peaceful transfer of power. It has been touch and go a couple of times since then, to be honest, but Ghanaians managed to keep it together. But now, the biggest opposition party, the National Democratic Congress, alleges that there are irregularities in the compilation of the voters' roll. Elections are due in December, so everyone's getting a bit jumpy about the seeming unauthorized transfer of voters to unspecified districts, the removal of names from the roll, and so on. The NDC says this is unprecedented, and they are asking the Electoral Commission to investigate the issue. And they've called on their supporters to demonstrate in support of this particular demand.
So if registration equipment have been stolen, and then you see people who have been transferred, and you cannot trace where they were transferred from, the conclusion can be obvious. Another layer is that over 3,000 people have their names deleted completely from the register.
They should sit up and then do what is good for the country. That's all that we want.
The National Democratic Congress want the Electoral Commission to open up the process of auditing the voters' roll to all interested parties. The Commission says the NDC's call is misguided. But why won't the Commission allow a forensic audit? I've been finding out from Franklin Cudjoe, founding president and CEO of Imani Center for Policy and Education, which is a think tank based in Accra. So, Franklin, what is the issue with the voter register?
Well, the Ghana's voters register has always had issues. Anytime we have elections, a number of issues that come up. But specifically on this one, the NDC the opposition party, the largest opposition party, managed to find out that there have been multiple errors in registration of voters. Voters have been transferred to other places that they're not aware of. And other errors that come up, 1 million people who may have had their registration affected. So clearly there are multiple errors, but essentially it is about the fact that some voters have been transferred unknowingly to other places, and indeed others cannot find their names at all.
Is the implication that this is being done deliberately, or are they genuinely errors?
Well, if you listen to the the Electoral Commission actually confessed that a few of the officials have actually engaged in voter transfers without the authorities, the Commission's approval. So there's some aspect that people want to believe that is deliberate. The problem with the EC is that while it accepts some of the errors, at least 3 of the errors the NDC has pointed so far, it is unwilling to do anything about it. In fact, it claims that the errors are misguided and that the call for an audit is actually misguided and premature. But the scale of the errors are quite frightening. And that's why the whole country is actually quite worried right now.
Why are they digging their heels in if 250,000 people are sort of erroneously moved around or removed from the voters' roll? Surely they must see that this is a problem for people and it raises tensions unnecessarily. Is there no way of compelling them to do it?
Well, ordinarily, the EC should have been speaking to the parties, but the EC has created this atmosphere of essentially not listening to any alternative voices at all. And so it's very difficult. We are hoping that Parliament will be recalled from recess, and then maybe the matter will be determined thereon. But clearly speaking, but I'm worried that the scale of the errors may actually be more than we are dealing with right now. And I suspect that's the reason why the EC is being reticent in listening to good reason. And many independents, by the way, not just me, respected independents and academics have called on the EC, Electoral Commission, to accept an audit. And people are not even asking for an external audit. All they are saying is that, well, the EC puts up its IT officials, and then the various parties as well bring their IT officials, and they painstakingly go through the register and correct the errors. Because the EC has accepted that at least 3 out of 6 of the errors identified by the largest opposition are actually true.
How credible has the EC been up to now?
Well, you may be asking the wrong person, because this EC in 2020 told my constituent, and I come from some part of the region in Ghana called SAR. My people were worried that we were not going to be allowed to vote in the parliamentary elections. I sent them to the chiefs, my chiefs and some elders. I sent them to the electoral commissioner. She received them and later assured me that our people are going to vote for their MP in the elections. 5 days later, she sent a letter midnight saying that my people could not vote in the elections. And since 2020, we've never had representation in parliament at all. So if you're asking someone who really about credibility, I have lived it. And frankly speaking, I may probably be the wrong person, but the judgment, the juries are out there. Many people do not trust the CC. In fact, the Afrobarometer survey, which is run by another think tank called the Center for Democratic Development in Ghana, has consistently shown that the results consistently shown that the EC is less trusted. In fact, they've moved from a high of about 67% about 6 years or 8 years ago to about 33% as we speak. So it's not just me, but many people really do not trust the EC.
The EC said that the call for a forensic audit was misguided, and you said that earlier. And they say that the Commission strongly believes that the surest way to attaining a robust and credible register is not through demonstrations. But so what are they suggesting then is the surest way of attaining a robust and credible register?
Well, in the EC's lexicon, the robust way is to exhibit the register for people to go and find out about these multiple errors. But the challenge here is that, there are many thousands of people who may find out quite late in the day about this error. So I don't think they're addressing the issue head on at all. And I think, clearly speaking, the surest way to get them to act is through mass demonstrations. And I hope that Parliament is recalled from recess so that this matter will be determined once and for all.
So tell us about the major players and parties. President Nana Addo won't be standing again, right? Because he's exhausted his 2 terms.
Yes, he wouldn't be standing. His vice president has been actually nominated as the flag bearer of the party right now, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia. It is really. And the opposition leader who will be contesting as former President John Mahama. Those are the leading candidates. And of course, there's a third candidate who defected from the ruling party, Alan Chermantin, who used to be the trade minister in Nana Addo's government.
So where did he defect to? Is he an independent?
Well, he formed his own movement. He formed his own movement called the Movement for Change, with the butterfly as emblem.
Okay.
And yeah.
So Dr. Bawumia has incumbency to deal with. Former President John Mahama has a record that he will have to defend now, given that he lost 8 years ago to Nana Addo. What do they have to say for themselves then?
Well, they've been comparing records. The vice president has dared the former president to compare records, and he says that he's managed to achieve 33 things, at least as vice president. The challenge with that narrative, though, is that part of his narrative suggests that for some of the many ills in the current government, he didn't have constitutional authority to deal with them, especially the economic decadence that we've experienced over the last 8 years. He doesn't want to accept responsibility for that. But there are certain things he says that he's able to achieve, and he's achieved 33 of them, and then says he alone actually initiated that. But for those that are negative, he had no constitutional authority. It's some sort of counterintuitive, really. The former president then comes and says, well, I left you with an economy that was quite doing well. The dollar to the cedi was around 4 cedis to a dollar. Today, as we speak, it's nearing 16 cedis, right? Inflation at the point went to 54%, I think 2 years ago. Never did inflation go to that level under the former president. And there are many economic factors. Unemployment itself has gone that high. And so the former president says, well, look, I built so much infrastructure within 4 years as president, compared with how much you have received, so much money. You drove the country into a debt iceberg and virtually into a junk status, and then in an IMF program as we speak. So clearly the elections look set to be fought on the economy.
Now, Ghana has largely, for this century, certainly had peaceful transfers of power. There were a couple of times when it got very sticky and it got a bit scary. This election register issue, can it endanger that sense of security that Ghanaians have inculcated in the democratic process?
Oh, without a doubt, it definitely can. And, we've had issues in the past with registers. We never got this close to having a whole, should I call it, opposition party organizing elections in almost every region, and they are threatening to do so in every district if the EC doesn't budge. And this time around, there are many, many people, independents, who are actually now calling on the EC to act. I suspect if the EC does not act, there could be trouble.
That's Franklin Cudjoe, the CEO of the Imani Center for Policy and Education in Accra.